All right, so moving on to the last topic on the agenda, it's the panel discussion. The topic stands DPG, DPI, Open Networks, India's leading in the world in building a citizen-centric system. So on this topic, I would like to invite on stage the moderator, Mr. Nikhil Kollur, partner, Deloitte India. Can we have sir on stage? Can you welcome him with a round of applause? Quickly introducing the panelists, Mr. Manish Srivastava, CTO, eGov Foundation, Dr. Vignesh Sornamohan, Senior Vice President, Government Services, CSC Governance Services India Limited. And we also have Ms. Kirtana Medarametla, Senior Curator, GAMI. Can we welcome all of them with a big round of applause? Yes, so like I said, it is a panel discussion. The topic stands DPG, DPI, Open Networks, India leading the world in building citizen-centric systems. I would quickly hand it over to the moderator, Mr. Nikhil. So it's a 20 minutes panel discussion. I would prompt you 5 minutes before. Thank you so much.
We'll keep it probably lesser than that. We'll keep it sharp. That's what we agreed as a group, right? Last panel of the day, so a lot of energy that's on stage here, as you can see. So first of all, thank you, Satyanarayana sir. I think you really set the context for this discussion. I was planning to do a little bit of what you said, but I think from your words, it was golden to kind of set the context for our conversation. So we'll dive in, right? I think just a couple of questions that we wanted to start with. All of you have had experiments, successful ones, with DPI, and as you're, working in your respective organizations on ideas and truly transformative ideas, I think the first question really is, what have been your learnings, experiences, as you've seen the DPI journey evolve? Obviously, early stages, but would love to understand first-hand experiences.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Manish. I am the CTO with eGov Foundation. So we've been basically open source software development. We've been doing DPGs for last 20 years. We founded in 2003. Early days, we started basically building departmental applications for local governments. And these were specific departmental governments, and that's where we started. Over a period of, we realized that by doing those approaches, you create functional silos. Data becomes siloed in various departments within the government, and while it gives some level of benefit to within the department benefits, it also creates a negative impact from a citizen, because now the citizen has to run around with multiple departmental silos getting their data updated. And I think we need to realize, as governments, as various agencies in the governments are digitizing, they are also creating data silos. So there is some benefit, but it also, how do you link these data silos and enable data to flow from various departments within the governments and also market players becomes an important next step that needs to happen. And I think that is where a lot of the discussions around DPIs and how do you enable trusted flow of data between various agencies, market agencies as well as government agencies, in a trusted, secure manner can happen, so that service delivery can happen to the citizen in a coordinated fashion. And I think it's important to understand the linkage between seamless, structured flow of data between various agencies, and why this is important for unified or coordinated delivery of services to citizens, whether by the government or by in coordination with the market players. And I think a lot of that debate and discussion is there. So we've been working on that phase. We've been working with various governments to help them break these silos with a platform-based architectures where you build these registries. Instead of building systems like this, you build systems where you build a set of registries, you build a set of common services, and then you build apps on top of it. And this is a framework basically that we put out called Digit. We built some of those ourselves in the urban space, in the health space, sanitation space. And then we are also working with various market players like Deloitte, PwC, everybody, to be able to build in other spaces as well, including, and I think Kirtana will talk about some of the other collectives who are trying to solve problems at scale. And these are all being built out as open source. So any government agencies or market players are able to pick it up and actually scale it out. So this is the view, this is what we have been doing. We've been doing it for the last 20 years, and we are at that journey. We've had some moderate success, but I'll just pass it on for in the short.
Thanks, Manish. I think we'll head to the other side. You spoke about obviously working with the government, and I think maybe we can hear from Vignesh the other side in terms of your experiences.
Sure. I think I'm very happy to see Satyanarayana sir. He is one of the pioneers and critical architects of this entire National E-Governance Plan. I think after R. Chandrasekhar sir, he was the Secretary of MeitY, and he was the visionary leader who actually gave shape to the Common Services Center and all the mission mode projects. So I think we all should be very grateful to Satyanarayana sir and the entire team for creating such digital public infrastructures. I think what is DPI? It's like roads, right? In the roads, a common man can walk, a bicycle rider can ride, a two-wheeler motorist can ride, a car can go, a bus can go, right? A container can go, a truck can go. So like that, so digital public infrastructure, as sir rightly pointed out, Aadhaar, UPI and other public infrastructure, they're there. But when it comes to delivery in the rural areas, I think as sir has, they had vision long back. I think now we are talking about assisted service delivery. They had this vision at least 20 years back. They definitely said we need to have assisted service delivery model as one of the critical mission mode projects. So CSCs were set up in every villages. Today we have about 5.8 lakh CSCs, and they provide a range of services starting from passport and all the PM welfare schemes. We have business correspondence services of all the banks, Aadhaar enabled payment system. So that was the first in the country which was rolled out even before the UPI came into existence. And we have other our own digital public infrastructures like Bal Vidyalayas, where we have used a lot of VR-based content for school children, young children, and we have other e-stamp services, e-district services like income certificate, birth certificate, community certificate, caste certificate. So all these services are being delivered. And interesting perspective is like we have been, like when the original idea was there, over a period of time, CSCs will become redundant. So that with that idea, many schemes where many departments looked at CSCs as a small player. But today, CSCs are catering to at least 30 to 40% of the population. And it's been increasing. So, which is a good sign because people are looking at assisted service delivery, especially the senior citizens, people with disabilities, and young working professionals, because they don't want to waste time in going to different government offices. And we have started in some of the states the doorstep delivery of services, government services. So these are something that we have been experimenting, and we would be happy to work with any government department in the country to deliver the services in rural India. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vignesh. Ketan, I'll move to you to present your unique perspective.
Oh yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, actually I think, so I'm from Agami. We look at innovation for law and justice specifically, right? And we're at the early stages of looking at what does applying DPG, DPI thinking and infrastructure for the domain of law and justice. So it's too early to talk about success stories, but I can share more about why it's a direct fit. When we think about law and justice, a citizen, like their experience of law is so fragmented. If they have to get advice, they have to go somewhere. If they have to get consult a lawyer after, if they have to file a case in court, and then their experience in court after that as well, right? Like it's not very user friendly in that sense. So if we had to apply that thinking and really design the system, keeping the user at the center, and what is all the information flow that needs to happen, who are the ecosystem entrepreneurs entrepreneurs that we need to enable? What are the standards and protocols and specs we need for that? So that is some of the work that we're currently doing. And we're hoping that in a year or two from now, we'll be able to talk about success stories. But right now, we have over, like, I think a solid 100 community members, entrepreneurs, government leaders, judiciary departments, and us all coming together trying to make this happen, right? So that's where I leave in terms of where we are at. There is innovation happening across AI, protocols, and DPGs, like a case management platform system. So how do all of these come together for law and justice is what we're looking at.
Thanks, Kit. Manish, one question linked to what you were already speaking about. You obviously work with a lot of governments, a lot of government interfaces, so you kind of see the good, bad, ugly of the government, right? What, in your perspective, is a good interface to have from a government perspective? And, you know, what are some of the learnings that you've taken from probably the best bureaucrats and people who are sitting on the other side when it comes to DPI and the work that you're doing?
Yeah. I think DPI and Aadhaar and UPI, sir has already explained, so I will not explain that any further. But I think one which I think most government service delivery departments can relate to is the transformation that happened with IRCTC. Is well known. And I remember as a kid, we used to all stand in line and get onto the counter and pay that extra money to get tickets. And with enablement of something like IRCTC, now getting information about what tickets, how do you book a ticket, all of this is being democratized. There are market players who are looking into those APIs, being able to provide those services to various, it is integrated into, let's say, Make My Trip or any of those apps now you're seeing. So access becomes so easy when you rethink the public service, and it's real transformation in terms of service access and service delivery if you think about what happened to pre-IRCTC era to post-IRCTC era. That's a simple case of digital transformation that many departments in the government need to already go through.
I think great advice for everyone. Vignesh, I'll move to one question. You mentioned that probably futuristic, even CSEs could be redundant because everything could be probably done in a virtual first or a hybrid first environment, and the role of a physical center when it comes to some of these services might be redundant. I think one follow-up question on that really is, what are the steps that, again, ecosystem players do you think need to make, whether it's a startup who's probably providing some partnership, or if it's a private company, or if it's a government agency as well. What do you think are some of the steps that probably are needed? Because you're truly talking about a transformative idea where a center is virtual and therefore you're not bound by the physical constraints, right? I mean, you could be in the most remotest pin code, but you have that service available to you.
So I think interesting things have started happening. As I said, doorstep delivery of services. So gone are the days when people have to go to the government offices to get their certificates. Now various state governments as well as the central government has started looking at delivering it at their doorstep. And second one is assisted mode, especially in the trusted environment. Say for example, banking, insurance, and Aadhaar. So these are services which need a trusted and assisted format as ever, because these are very sensitive services and you always need these senders. And I don't see CSCs or a assisted service model becoming redundant even after 20 years or 30 years. And also the self-service kiosk model, I think what I felt is people wanted to have the touch and feel. I think even in health field that people used to say that majority of the health diseases doesn't need a physician to touch and diagnose you. Same like this, people still want to go to a doctor, they want the doctor to test them and then give them prescription. Similarly, people are still looking at having somebody to talk to and get the service. So that model, I think it's going to be there. It may not be for all the citizens. I will give you a classic example. We have been working with various DISCOMs, almost about 35 DISCOMs across the country. And 60% of their collections come from this BPPS or online mechanism. but still 40% of their bill collection happens through their physical outlets or through CSCs. So that is there, and CSCs are also innovating in a different way, because they don't they don't ask the people to come to the center. Instead, the VLEs go to the citizen's house and collect the bills. So these are things that are happening. Yeah.
Thanks. Very, very good, useful examples. So Kidna, I think is one of the few lawyers in the room. I think we spoke about privacy concerns when it comes to DPI. Anything that you can share, given the recent Privacy Act and probably the developments thereof? How do you see, DPI in the context of privacy, and what are some good practices maybe that you can educate us about?
I'm going to quote Manish first, because just an hour ago he said protocols are a version of social reality, social contract. So he said first we need to arrive at, what are the principles of policy that we want to ingrain that means, right? So if you're going to trust that, we are going to focus on user centricity, and a user gets to dictate what of their information they want to give to whom, for what purpose, then the protocol is going to bake that in, essentially, right? And then you have the law and the policies that are going to enable that. So I actually think that the DPI thinking and the DPI way of thinking actually enables privacy, the way I see it. But what it requires is then for us to get into that mental mindset of saying who needs to have what data, and how can we design it in a manner that a user can decide when they want to pass what information, when, to whom, and think of it in a decentralized way, right? So once we have that mindset shift in our social construct or in the way we are designing the use cases, then I think we can adapt the tech and the protocols to that.
So user-led within a governance frame. Perfect. So I think we'll come to a rapid fire. We're almost wrapping up. But we'll probably end on a positive note. I think it's the last conversation for today. And 2024, 6 years hence, 2030, right? What is your vision of DPI in India? We've seen amazing examples coming from the country. Like UPI obviously is really going global. I don't know if it's ONDC or whatever it is, right? But what's your 2030 wish list for DPI success?
Sure. I'm biased to law and justice, so I'm envisioning a place where whenever someone is faced with any issue, they are immediately able to get access to the information they need, the people they need, the services they need, and are able to do it from where they are at, as opposed to your current reality of, say, having to find the right lawyer, go to the right person, keep going to court all the time, even when your cases are getting adjourned. So it's almost like a system that speaks to the citizen and gives the citizen what they need when they have any issue around law and justice. So be it legal, dispute resolution, be it education for law, whichever thing, but anyone that's interested in law and justice, the system is designed to meet the person, is my wish.
Yeah, so I think, if I may say, there is a fundamental breakdown, or there's low trust between what is called Samaj Sarkar Bazaar. So I think citizens don't necessarily trust government, they don't necessarily trust markets, governments don't trust markets. There's a fundamental breakdown of trust. And the whole purpose of enabling trusted data exchange is to negotiating those trust boundaries, to enable data exchange in a manner which benefits the citizen. So I think eventually it's really rethinking some of those, how we'll enable this, because it's the level of service delivery, the problems that India is facing. It's not something that the government can solve yet on its own, unless until they are able to involve markets in a trusted manner. And how is it going to happen at scale? And I think really DPI is the heart of that question.
Perfect. Thank you. Same question, wish list.
So I think some of the states have started already working on it. What I could see by 2030 is automated and what you call the prescriptive or automated service, government service delivery to citizens without having to interface with the government. Say, for example, the moment a child is born, within 10-15 days, the birth certificate is automatically sent to the digital locker, right? And then as they grow, they get an admission letter from the school in their DigiLocker. And over a period, I think as they get eligible for various government schemes, it should automatically go to their digital infrastructure. And this, I think it's already started happening in some of the states. I think sooner than later, it will happen across the country. Thank you.
Science fiction movie, Invisible Government is your wish list. Perfect. Great. So we'll close this conversation. I think we're bang on time. But again, just wanted to thank the three of you. We were a little iffy whether we're going to have a go at the stage, but I think we had a great conversation. You know, we started the day with this theme on digital governance, future of government transformation. I think it's been a very fitting conversation. Spoken a lot about the future. So thank you for these insights. Thank you.
Check. All right. Thank you so much. I think we had a great discussion on the topic mentioned. Thanks to the moderator and the panelists for sharing your thoughts with us. Okay, thank you so much. And as we proceed, as we are marching towards the end, we would want to felicitate the panelists and the moderator, and to do the honors, I would request Ms. Rama Devi to please join us on the stage. Can we welcome ma'am with a round of applause, please? Ma'am, it's great to have you here. We started with you and now we are kind of closing with you, so thank you so much. Very firstly, we would like to felicitate the moderator, Mr. Nikhil. Thank you so much for facilitating the session. We would also like to thank Mr. Manish Srivastava for sharing his thoughts. We would also like to felicitate Dr. Vignesh. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us today. And yes, we also want to felicitate Ms. Kirtana. Thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your valuable thoughts, keeping the final panel discussion super crispy with a lot of topics to be discussed, which has been covered already. So thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, requesting you to please stay back for a group picture, ma'am. Requesting everyone to join us in the front for a group picture.